soundtrack of a city, the musical soul of a nation. Fado is simple song and poetry that comes with a complicated political history.
We are talking about a living heritage.
Born in poverty.
It was a marginal song. The sailors, the prostitutes used to sing Fado, that kind of people, you know, the most disfavored people.
It's raw, it's heavy, it's dirty.
It's a musical genre that was once hijacked by a fascist regime here.
The base of all things was fear. Fear, all the time.
Havia certas letras que nós não podíamos dizer porque era contra era o fascismo.
Art is not for one elite, it's for everyone, because art makes people think.
But it has since seen a revival, and now it's gaining popularity, even beyond Portugal's borders.
Tourists enjoy Fado a lot and look for Fado, and so it's a business too.
I want to explore the humble roots of this musical genre, why Fado is said to be the Portuguese blues, and how it came to be ingrained in this country's cultural identity. Join me as I explore Portugal's Fado revival.
Fado is an old musical genre born in poverty but later adopted by the gentry. It was discarded in the 1970s after being associated with fascism here, but today it enjoys great popularity. I want to discover Fado's winding history, its melancholic tune, and how it's being redefined by many as the soul of Portugal.
Thinking of Fado as Portugal's national song, we should put that in a political and historical context. Portugal is very rich musically.
Dizem que o Fado cresceu ou nasceu com a partida das naus para o ultramar. E começou com as tais ladainhas, as tais saudades. É um lamento, começou como um lamento.
When we talk about the main roots of the late 19th century Lisbon Fado, these roots were sung dance which developed in the Brazilian colony, combining European rhythms with Afro-Brazilian melodies.
The Portuguese court was exiled to Brazil between 1807 and 1821, following the Napoleonic invasions of Portugal. Many people went from Portugal, brought back, when they came back, with them Brazilian musical genres. Something called Fado, which was danced, in fact, in Brazil.
All of this is appropriated and is taken over by the poor neighborhoods along the Lisbon harbor, and soon Fado became a central element of our culture in Lisbon.
This phrase reads cradle of Fado because Fado was born on these cobbled streets in the neighborhoods of Alfama and Moravia in the 19th century. Back then, it was sung by sailors, poor traders and people belonging to the marginal parts of society, which is why Fado is said to be the music of the people.
Fado, it's music that came from the streets, from people, from real people, from fishermen, the women that sells fish, the prostitutes.
That kind of melancholy that some people say that Fado has came from there, because they were very, poor people with too much pain.
There was a period during the Republican regime between 1910 and 1926 where Fado actually had political lyrics and was a vehicle to transmit political ideas. This was a period of turmoil, defending workers' rights and denouncing difficult working situations. Fado was also controversial because it was regarded by some musicians and intellectuals as a decadent genre that only talks about love or about longing. It's not musically sophisticated because they were only thinking of the simple harmonies that accompany Fado.
Fado soon expanded to the outskirts of Lisbon, to the circuits of taverns, but also to the middle classes venues and also to the theatre, which was a very important stage for Fado exposure.
All of a sudden comes together the aristocracy, you see, together. So you have people on one side, aristocracy on the other, and they get mixed to sing Fado.
In 1840, there is a Lisbon prostitute from the neighborhood of Moraria, which was known as a remarkable Fado singer, and immediately became the first icon of Fado tradition.
She was a prostitute in the 19th century that fell in love with the count.
It was important because with that scandal, you could imagine it was a huge scandal, a count and a prostitute. He brought into the light the hidden reality of Fado. Before that, it was associated only with poor people, sailors, criminals.
In 1926, after a coup d'etat, Portugal became a military dictatorship.
This monument behind me memorializes Portugal's former empire. Huge ships would set sail from here all around the world, but it's also a reminder of its fascist past as it went up during Salazar's dictatorship as a symbol of pride in a colonial era.
It's said that Portuguese dictator Antonio de Oliveira Salazar controlled the country with the 3 Fs: Fado, football and Fatima.
The implementation of the military dictatorship in 1926 brought with it the censorship of all the artistic activities.
There was a strict censorship. Fado singers had to have a kind of a special permit, what in Portuguese was called carteira profissional, in order to sing. Fado venues were also, monitored.
Every song you had to sing, you had to show it to a central, you had to go there, show the song, either they freed it or they cancelled it.
Eles eram censurados, os fados eram censurados pela PIDE, que era a polícia do regime, né? Doutrinal, polícia doutrinal, como queiras chamar. Aquilo era tudo censurado, ou seja, se houvesse alguma referência ao governo, ao mal-estar do povo, e o fado é isso, o fado é um bocado um choro, há vários tipos de fado, mas a maior parte do fado nessa altura era um choro porque o povo português passava mal.
During the regime at the time, my relationship with Fado song was cynical because I really wanted to sing something different, but I couldn't.
Salazar sent musicians to perform in the colonies, in the ex-colonies, including Fado singers. There were radio stations, for example, both in Mozambique and in Angola, local radio stations, but that were run, of course, by the colonial government. All the recordings that were of Fado that were published in Portugal were also available in the former colonies. So this is a huge topic that needs to be investigated.
The dictatorship, they took Fado like this is a symbol of Portugal, and a lot of people didn't enjoy Fado.
E nos anos 70 até aos anos 80, essa desconfiança do Fado ser uma elite do antigo regime, se calhar perdurou um bocado e talvez isso tenha feito com que o Fado desaparecesse.
Fado was actually instrumentalized by the totalitarian regime of Salazar to promote Portugal abroad in order to attract tourism and to have some sonic representation of Portugal. And this coincided also with the international career of Amalia Rodrigues, the famous Fado icon Amalia Rodrigues.
Se uma gaivota viesse trazer você.
Having a person who can really sonically represent with her beautiful voice and her brilliant interpretation, this was really very, very convenient.
Principalmente com a Amália Rodrigues como bandeira do nacionalismo português. E quando houve o 25 de Abril, o Fado foi quase como que cúmplice para alguns olhos. Ele usou principalmente a Amália Rodrigues. Ela viajava para todo o mundo, para os Estados Unidos, e ela era o porta-estandarte de Portugal.
The Fado singers, they were singing poems with a lot of messages between the lines to try to change things with poetry.
E às vezes há muitos fados que eram, de maneira escondida, falavam mal do regime. Ou seja, eles cantavam o fado inclusivamente para os membros do governo nessa altura, e estavam a falar contra eles e eles aplaudiam. Não sabiam que as entrelinhas que havia nas cantigas de fado. Há muitos fados assim, e a Amália cantava-os.
The truth is that Fado artists always knew how to keep singing themes which sometimes were also politically protesting and politically relevant, and the Fado poets also always knew how to create double meaning lyrics.
Before the regime, they used to sing very, very revolutionary songs. Fado was one of them. And came the regime, stopped everything, censorship, and comes the revolution, and with that we have freedom. He's singing what do you think, what you have in mind, what do you feel about life, about people, about love, about sadness, about anything. He was giving Fado back to its origin, that was free and socially very intense.
It is said that you can learn Fado, but you can't teach it. That's because there is no conservatory for it. Fado is passed down as an oral tradition, and it's learned around the neighborhood or in Fado houses like this one.
Fado houses was a concept that became in the early of the 20th century. Before that, Fado had not a proper place to be performed. It was happening in some taverns, on the streets.
Fado is an oral tradition, okay? It's very important to understand that. You don't have a school or conservatory. Now you have, but only for Portuguese guitar teaching, not for singing Fado, okay? So, because it's an oral tradition, you have to go to some places in the neighborhoods of Lisbon, the typical places, where you can learn. Every community in Fado experience this kind of self-learning, the knowledge passed on from one another.
Fado houses were once filled with locals, but today many tourists come here to soak up the sound of Portugal.
Some people came here and think this is a bar, and we are singing there, and they think, oh, okay, they are just singing there. So what's new, and what you're going to do tomorrow, and what do you think about Lisbon? And so, okay, they don't know that this is kind of opera, if I can say that. It's not relaxed. It doesn't have the goal to entertain, just entertain. It has the goal to share emotions and tell stories.
Felizmente, sim, direi que mais de 90% são turistas. Infelizmente, porque o português normal não tem verba para vir jantar assim. E nunca vai perder porque nós estamos cá para manter, não é? Isso é o ponto principal. Mas creio que muitas vezes o turismo, as pessoas que vêm de fora não sabem para o que vêm. Como já ouvi uma vez uma japonesa a perguntar-me: eu quero comer fado porque ouvi dizer que fado era muito bom.
Even though some Fado houses have become mainstream, there are still many tavernas where locals get together and sing.
Se encontrares companheira, o vento sopra nas fragas.
José Cardoso, meu nome. Canto fado vadio desde muito miúdo. Comecei a frequentar casas de fados com os meus 15 anos de idade. Presentemente tenho 66 de idade, mas sempre fado vadio. É uma coisa que nasceu comigo já, portanto, costuma-se dizer que o fado não se aprende, é um dom que Deus me... Eu chamo um dom que Deus me deu, portanto, no fado. Eu, por exemplo, o meu pai, o meu falecido pai que Deus tem, a minha mãe que Deus tem também já faleceu, e então eu lembro-me de ir à taberna, na altura era a taberna, e ia buscar o vinho para o meu pai. O meu pai trabalhava na estivador, e a minha mãe trabalhava há dias. E então eu ia comprar o vinho a essa taberna, e então eles punham-me em cima daqueles barris muito grandes de vinho, daqueles barris grandes, e pegavam em mim, punham-me lá, e então punham-me a cantar. Na altura eram 25 tostões, que era muito dinheiro, e o meu pai ia já à procura, e eles diziam: epá, oh Constantino, não deixa estar o miúdo que ele está aqui. E o meu pai estava à espera para comer, queria beber uma pinguinha de vinho. E de maneira que isso era ali. Porque no meu tempo eram aqueles fadistas mais velhos. Eu nunca pensava que depois viesse muita juventude como agora está.
Today, Fado has developed a new tune.
Since the death of Amalia, it was in 1999, there was a huge wave of new Fado singers, and many people also in other countries, in Europe and the States and all around the world, who suddenly were interested in this kind of music.
Fado suffered an evolution as much as we, as humans.
Agora é a transformação do fado. Não se pode chamar aqui o fado tradicional, não é? Fado tradicional é uma coisa, fado popular, como queira chamar, é outra. Não, agora é assim, o fado novo, eles até guitarras elétricas usam. Não se pode chamar aquilo fado, pelo menos fado tradicional, porque o fado tradicional principalmente é a guitarra, é a viola e uma viola baixo.
I don't think that Fado, the traditional Fado, is dying because we have such a huge repertoire. I think we have 300 or something. And one thing, for example, that I love to do is to take one traditional Fado and, for example, just write new poems for it.
Nowadays, there's a lot of fusions and there's a lot of ways of feeling Fado.
I prefer to do new stuff, to do new stories, to write new things, to discover new things, work with people who write contemporarily, but still play it with, not with the old, but with the traditional instruments, but with new people who play those kind of instruments in a modern way. Because of the new media we have, you know, because of Facebook, because of downloading things, because of the singers getting younger and younger and younger and having TV shows like everywhere in the world, like The Voice or Idols or something. Younger people listen to Fado and are interested, because if it was not the case, I think like every kind of art or culture, it would die in 20 years. And I'm very sure that it won't happen. The marketing of Fado, it's sold like this, the sad soul of Portugal, the melancholy of Lisbon, and this is correct, but every time you talk about the melancholy of Lisbon, this old Lisbon, you look into the past, you know. Lisbon is not that girl anymore. Lisbon is very modern. Lisbon is very new. I think we should go into the future, but preserve the core, the heart of Fado. So this passion that you have, and try to be still unique.
Over the centuries, the unique sound of Fado has changed.
It can be sad, it can be emotional, it can be funny, it can be ironic, it can criticize, and it can be still Fado nowadays.
What was once the music of the poor was adopted by the elite. And under fascist rule, it was shaped into a symbol of Portuguese nationalism. But even then, the essence of Fado was never entirely lost. Double meanings were sometimes hidden in lyrics.
Fado is poetry, and poetry makes you think.
And after Portugal's repressive regime crumbled, a new Fado emerged.
Our direction is now democracy, so we are open. Fado is democracy. The young people sing freely whatever they want.
Fado continuously evolved and always trying to match the rhythm of Portuguese culture changes.
There is a range of contexts and audiences for Fado that cross-cuts all social classes.
Fado was born as the music of the underdogs, but later became a national rhythm. It has gone through enormous changes throughout decades, always reflecting the transformation of the country. And today, it still keeps doing so. Although now sold internationally to millions, there is still a great sense of locality, and its true home remains in the hearts of the people of Alfama and Moravia.